It's like chewing on a piece of not super strong, but maybe medium pickled ginger.
Oh, okay, okay.
So it's decent. They have different levels of strength, but the strongest it's up there. But I'm the type that always steals everybody's ginger at the sushi place. So
Same.
yeah.
Do you eat it by itself, or do you eat it with stuff with your sushi?
Oh, no, actually, I don't combine it on top of the sushi, but I'll just graze from it like it was a bowl of chips.
That's really what I do. I like to just eat the pickled ginger. That's really
Uh-huh.
the best part.
Usually they figure it out and they'll bring me an extra bowl.
I wish people did that with me. Oh my God.
I'm trying to move y'all around so I can just go ahead and start, but all of your faces are in the way. There we go. Okay. So I know we might have a few new people in here because I know Miss Renee Harris, our advisor, sent out an email yesterday, a couple days ago. I don't know. It's all blurring together.
Yes.
So if you're new, welcome. Don't forget to say hello into the chat box so you get credit for the meeting. And this is all of our social media information. So we're on Instagram, OrgLink, Facebook. We do have a GroupMe, so make sure to email our Vice President Daniel if you would like the GroupMe link. We post updates in there all the time. Same thing with social media, but email through OrgLink is going to be our main way of communicating with you. So I just want to go ahead and say thank you to everyone who's been volunteering and being really, really consistent with it. We're doing a really good job. And then also we do have a YouTube channel. So if you guys miss any meetings, you can always go back and watch the previous ones on our lovely little YouTube channel. Okay, so becoming a member, if you're new and you haven't heard this before, make sure you join us on OrgLink. It's a requirement for Sam Houston State University. Ooh, shortness of breath, there it is. Wow, that was bizarre. Ooh.
Tag team.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag you in for a second there.
All right. So in order to become a bona fide member of Shamos, you have to, one, obviously pay dues, and then two, it's definitely required to join us on OrgLink. If you do not know how to do that, it's a really simple process. You just basically go into OrgLink, sign in with Sam Houston, and then search Sam Houston Association, and we should pop up somewhere among there. And then you can hit request to join, and then eventually one of the officers, typically myself, will let you, or will accept you, send you, or possibly send you an email, or just hit you with the mass comm email that tells you what we're going to do this week for Shamos. And that's pretty much how to become a member in general stuff.
Okay, so step 2, you do have to earn 10 service hours. Anything less than 10 service hours, you're going to be considered a part-time member and you just don't get the benefits from it. So, and then we're doing something different this semester. Every hour that you earn over 10 is going to roll over to the spring semester. So hopefully that makes it a little bit easier on you guys. And then 1 hour does have to be from blood drive related events. And then you can volunteer at other outside events. Just make sure to put it on the outside hours log, and then those will count as well.
All right, so step 3, dues are due today, October 1st, $20 for $20. I put the cash up in the Venmo. Since today's the last day, I can't really meet in person. Also because of, there's a pandemic. So I know some of y'all, this is like y'all's first meeting because Renee Harris just sent y'all an email about us. So just a reminder that today's the last day to pay dues. You can email me. I put my email there, and also you can message me in the GroupMe. But after today, we're not accepting any payments. So yeah, get your dues in.
Yeah.
I've advised one student already, before you pay any dues, before you sign up with us at all, finish through the meeting and then think about it. Is this an organization that I would like to stay in for the rest of the semester, or possibly continue? Just be wise with your money, be wise with your time, because this isn't for everyone, but for some people, as with our roster, it is the deal to get in with. So please don't feel any pressure to just sign up.
Yeah, for sure. We're definitely not pressuring you at all. We do cater to like a variety of healthcare, pre-healthcare professionals. So if you're looking for a more specific one, we can give you a list for specific career-related organizations on campus as well. So tailing off of everything, our spring semester scholarship did get pushed to this semester. So the top 2 members with the most hours will receive $100 each. You have to have paid your dues on time, and you have to earn the minimum number of hours. In the event of a tie, whoever attends the most meetings of that tie, they will get the scholarship. And then some volunteer and hour opportunities. So every single meeting is worth 1 hour. Blood drives, members are required to earn at least 1 blood drive hour, whether it's through donation or through flyer advertisement. So you walk around, pass out flyers. You can donate to the Sam Houston Food Pantry. So for every 3 items, it's 1 hour. And then also to the Rita B. Huff Center, 3 items, 1 hour. And then the Alzheimer's Association, if you donate $5, that's also 1 hour. And then for tutoring, if you're interested in tutoring, it doesn't have to be specifically STEM subjects. It can be something like English or essays or whatever. Contact Denise Garcia for more information on how to get set up with a student there. And then, like I said before, any outside volunteering also counts. Okay, so this weekend, we would usually in person have the walk to end Alzheimer's, but they're doing it differently. So it's considered virtual. So you can do it anywhere, any point in time. So just use your phone health app to track how many miles you walk from Friday to Sunday. And then for every mile, you get 2 service hours for it. Okay, and then this is our lovely little blood drive slide. So these are all the blood drives that we have for the rest of the semester. So for successfully donating, you get 2 hours. And then if you donate plasma, then you get a total of 4 hours. And then you also will get an hour if you try to donate, but you get rejected for whatever reason. And then you also get 1 hour for every hour that you pass out flyers and recruit donors. Contact Denise. Her email is down here at the bottom if you're interested in passing out flyers. And then the blood drives are located between the chemistry building and the life science building on the 2nd floor entrance. So it's kind of sort of out on the street. And then it's from 12 to 4:30. And we do have Miss Teresa Boss here today.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. I basically wanted to call in and just take a couple of minutes and number one, tell you guys thank you so much. You guys are doing a fabulous job, better than we've done in a long time. And that's really, really important right now because we have to collect 800 to 1,000 units of blood every day. I'm sure many of you heard me speak before, but that number hasn't changed. We're hearing a lot about COVID right now. But for the most part, COVID patients don't use a lot of blood. But our heart patients, our trauma patients, things like that still do. So all these places that we used to go collect blood, different organizations are, they're all working remotely. So we can't be there. So these drives that we have at the colleges or at the prison units, these types of drives are paramount to our collections. So keep up the good work, guys. You're doing a great job, and I can't say thank you enough, not only from our organization, but from our patients. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Don't feel shy.
All right, well, here's the thing, guys. If you need a letter of recommendation, I'm a good resource for that. Don't ever hesitate to call and ask me for anything like that you guys might need. But thank you so much. You guys are doing a great job, and we're relying upon you. You guys are, you're an organization we're proud of right now. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you have a great meeting.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks,
you, Ms.
Morgan.
Close.
Bye-bye. Hope you feel better.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Okay, so we do have our advisors information up here. So if you need to be advised, Renee Harris is your person. She's filling up real fast. And advising starts, like, registration starts really soon. So make sure you get advised. This is all of her information. And then Dr. Gilliard is our JAMP advisor and the advisor for Shamos. Her information is there as well. And then I will upload these PowerPoints to OrgLink for you guys to refer back to. Okay. Oh no, I missed a slide. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. So spring semester t-shirt information. So since I have COVID, I cannot pass out the t-shirts to you guys. So we're gonna have someone else do that. It's gonna be Maria. So whenever you get the chance, contact Maria and then she'll set up a time with you to either get your shirt or have it mailed to you. So if you want it mailed to you, it's just gonna cost $5, but she's gonna be your contact person. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna extend the deadline. We're gonna pass them out throughout the entire semester, and we're gonna give you guys way more time to do that, just in case. Okay, so let me get out of this screen real fast. Stop screen sharing. Okay, so I'm going to post a link in here. Where'd it go? Sorry, I'm technologically impaired sometimes. Okay, so that is a form in the chat where you guys can go and vote on the t-shirt design for this semester. So if you've already voted, don't worry about it. But if you haven't voted, you can go ahead and go in there and vote between our 2 t-shirt designs. And then let me pull back the meeting. Oh, I guess I have to screen share first. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm like having issues. How do I screen share? Okay, I'm learning. I'm still learning. This is crazy. Okay. Okay, so anyways, so these are the 2 t-shirts that we're voting between. Make sure you go and vote, only vote once, you know, all the good jazz. But yeah, so those are the 2 that we have the choice between. And then if you have any questions or concerns, make sure you contact us. This is all of our contact information. We usually respond pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. And now we have Dr. Delati.
Okay, what are we supposed to talk about?
So basically, so I know a lot of us, we have pre-med advisors and everyone telling us how to get into medical school and all that fun stuff. But if you could talk more from the career perspective, that would be awesome. Like just in general, what you do, what it's like, what you love about it, what you hate about it, all that fun stuff.
Only if you change this slide. That's awful. But yeah, go back to the t-shirts or something.
Okay.
Okay.
If you have something that you want to share, I'm going to put it so that you can share your screen too.
I have no germane material.
Okay.
So.
Quick question. Sorry. We're in OBGYN. Have you had anybody from any other specialties, or you just want us to represent all physicians?
So we do a variety. So we've had all kinds of speakers, school advisors, but we've never had an OBGYN come and talk before.
Okay. You've had other physicians?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So that's interesting. Okay. So that's helpful. Women's health is something that some people know right off the bat if they're interested in it, and other people.
May I interrupt, please? I think Amanda needs her own slide.
No, stop.
This is my wife, Amanda, and we went to residency together. We went to med school together. So South Alabama for med school, Jacksonville for residency. She did her maternal fetal medicine subspecialty training at UCLA, where we were for 3 years. And then now she's in private practice here. So that's her slide, and this is her face.
That's fine. I like being incognito.
Not anymore.
But women's health is something some people know right away that they're interested in it. And if that's you, good and great. Other people, like my husband, really don't realize that they like it, that it's something they want to do until they actually have the experience to rotate through one of the kind of specialties. Family practice physicians still do some degree of women's health. It spans a lot of age groups, all the way from, pediatric gynecology through geriatric gynecology and everything in between, including having babies. So if you like women's health, but you want to do other things, family practice is always a good kind of catch-all because you get a little bit of everything. But if you really know that you want to do women's health, then OB is kind of the way to go. And everybody just shortens it up into OB because OBGYN, to me, it just adds extra letters. So even if you say OB, people know what you mean. The residency is 4 years. Any fellowships can be 1 year versus 3 years. And then if you get really crazy and you do combined fellowships, then that's an extra 4 years after your residency. But you get a lot of things just from your regular OBGYN residency. So it's not one of those specialties where you have to subspecialize. Not at all, because the bulk of women's health is taken care of by just your basic OBGYN, which is Stephen. And then there, of course, like a lot of things, there are subspecialties within it. I do maternal fetal medicine, so that's high risk pregnancy. There's gyn-onc, which is, of course, cancer diagnosis and complicated surgery. Then there's reproductive endocrinology and infertility. They also have pediatric and adolescent gynecology fellowships and pelvic floor kind of fellowships. So you can do a lot. The key thing is that you have to be okay dealing with women as your patients because you really don't get any guys. All right.
Okay, my turn. So to clarify a few terms that you guys may not know, residency is a postdoc training. So when you go through medical school, traditionally it's 4 years. The classic setup is 2 years of didactic work or 2 years of lectures if you want, and then 2 years of clinical work in your third and fourth year of medical school. That system of education has been slowly changing over the last decade, given more modern models of adult education, but that's a completely separate conversation. So the more integrated model now is that clinical experience starts from the first, month that you're in medical school. The way that our school worked was the first 2 years in lecture, which is mind-numbing, sometimes has value, but a lot of times doesn't.
I liked it.
I played a lot of video games in the lecture hall on my laptop.
We're different.
So our first 2 years were in the lecture hall, and then our last 2 years were in the hospital. The third year is generally set up with a standard structure. There are 7 specialties that establish the foundation of training: surgery, internal medicine, pediatrics, family medicine, neurology, psychiatry, and women's health. You assign those rotations based on your interests. So if you want to be an OBGYN, you start off with OB. And if you don't want to be an OBGYN, you end your third year with OB, which is what I did, because who would want to be a gynecologist? But then I did it and I loved it. And there are a handful of reasons for that, and I'll come back to that. Your fourth year, you end up setting up electives for the specialty that you're interested in. So initially, I wanted to be a radiologist, and my first rotation, my first rotation was through radiology in my fourth year. Because that's when you get to meet the faculty at your medical school and you get to make an impression on them and to see if you're a good fit, and also to evaluate if that's what you really want to do or not want to do. And then I kind of coordinated my fourth year around radiology, but once I did women's health, I had to rearrange my entire fourth year to kind of evaluate the different aspects of women's health. So my personal experience with medicine was that of a general optimist. So I kind of come at things with a bright and sunshiny demeanor. And then I went through medical school and I found the opposite was true. So we go through enough contact hours for at least 2 master's degrees and almost a PhD, not combined. It's easily 2 master's degrees, or enough to get your like 3/4 of your PhD. It's a lot of work. And where most PhD programs are 5 to 7 years, we do it in 2 years. So it's an overwhelming amount of information, all of which you have to kind of ingest, metabolize, and then regurgitate in a way that shows that you're competent. And then I got into my 3rd year, and I was hopeful that patient care would kind of rejuvenate my desire to be a doctor, because 2 years of lecture didn't. And then I started my rotations, and they all sucked, frankly. Doctors are generally jerks.
No, they're not.
Some doctors are jerks, and that wasn't a great experience for me. So I became more and more of a black cloud, and then I ran into women's health, and I found that it was kind of this glorious specialty because instead of, from my perspective, and it may be a pessimistic perspective, postponing death, we actually ushered life in, which was way better than what everybody else was doing. I mean, and don't get me wrong, like death is a large piece of the medical pie. I mean, you cannot escape it. And we deal with it enough in our specialty as it is, but much less than the rest of the specialties. But delivering a baby is magical. And I was hooked from the 2nd or 3rd day. Our medical school had definitely a more traditional role when it came to training medical students. So on the 3rd day of my rotation, they put me in a room with a woman who had multiple children, I don't know, 7 or 8 kids. And they were like, deliver the baby, don't drop it, it'll be fine. And they left me in there. So it was me and the nurse and the patient. And then I delivered my first baby. Like that doesn't happen a lot, but it happened at our medical school. And then after that, like it was all rainbows and sunshines and unicorns for me. So I love the surgery. The nice part about women's health surgery is that women come in with a series of issues that then you can do surgery on and actually fix. A lot of medicine is about applying enough of a temporary patch, whether it's in pill form or other types of form, or other forms to allow the body to heal itself. So you kind of like catalyze the healing process. But in a lot of women's health operations, procedures, you actually fix problems, which I didn't really see happening in the other rotations that I was going through. So that's kind of how I came to my career choice. It was real roundabout. There was nothing direct about what I ended up doing. And then I decided that I wasn't going to do any of the subspecialties, primarily because you have to be a super competitive candidate to get into the subspecialties. And I'm not. I'm an average candidate. So my test scores are average. My clinical performance is average. I'm not calling myself dumb by any degree, but I'm definitely not the smartest doc in the room, that's for sure. Unlike my wife, who is. So that's brownie points. What else? So residency training is 4 years. You have a couple of different ways to access residency. The first way is the traditional way is the match program, where you enter into an algorithm called the match. Excellent, Jasmine. The match is an algorithm designed to match individual students with residency programs that they are most likely to thrive at. Thriving in residency is a little bit of an abstract idea because it's a very difficult thing. It's more difficult than medical school. There are hours restrictions, but the amount of work that you do is intense. And to some degrees traumatizing, if you will. I do not have fond memories of
I would just say
residency.
it's more stressful because you're actually doing patient care. You're not in med school. You feel like you're kind of playing at it. And the few times you actually do something, you're really excited about it. And then you jump into residency and it's all of a sudden like, oh, I'm the doctor. So there's that new stress that it can take a variable amount of time to get used to.
So what we do in our fourth year, end of our fourth year, middle of our fourth year, we go on a whole bunch of interviews to a variety of programs around the country. Those programs invite you to interview based on a handful of metrics, mostly the STEP scores. The STEP tests are tests that every medical student has to take to be licensed in the United States to practice medicine. There's step 1, 2, and 3. They highlight different strengths and weaknesses of different candidates. A lot of people pay attention to step 1, though I think it's going to a pass-fail instead of an actual score. And so the residency programs will evaluate your resume and your CV and figure out if you've done well, if you've done okay, or if you're not really a great fit for them. They invite you to an interview. You pay several $1,000s over a few months to travel around the country and have a 15-minute interview that then determines your future. And you hope you don't make an ass out of yourself. And then you submit to the match system a list of what you'd like in terms of preference for residency programs. And then those residency programs also list their preference of candidates, and then it goes into the algorithm. The algorithm puts out exactly where you would do great, we hope. And then you go to residency. The other way to access it is kind of what I did with radiology, which is I met the faculty, I met the residents, we're all buddies, we all played World of Warcraft together. And they're like, you can enter into the match if you want to, but we'll rank you number 1 because we know that you're a good fit for our residency program. That's a dangerous thing to do because programs make promises, but they have no obligation to keep them. But we did play Warcraft together, so I felt confident. Yeah, that's that story.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Morgan, what's next?
So what, this will be for both of you. What do you guys like most and what do you like least about the job?
I like taking care of patients. That's why I went into medicine. I wanted to help people. And I know that sounds hokey, but that's what I enjoy doing. If there's a problem, I like being the person to explain, here's what it is, here's what we can do about it, here's how we manage it. It just appeals to my brain. And then it's very, very rewarding to work with a patient and get a good outcome. It's an interesting kind of high. What I do not like about medicine, and I'm sure you guys have heard this from a lot of different sources or read about it, is all of the, paperwork and dealing with EMRs. There's so much almost like secretary work involved that it does really pull you away from time you could be taking care of people. It's like a price you have to pay. So there's really no way around it, but that would be what I dislike.
What part did you like?
Taking care of people.
Okay. I agree with the paperwork part. Our program director in Florida told us 50% of your job is paperwork, and if you don't like it, you're in the wrong field. That was actually on orientation day number 1. Probably his first bullet point actually was, if you don't like paperwork, you're in the wrong field. But I'd say my answer for the question is actually the same. I like taking care of patients and I don't like taking care of patients. It's some patients are fantastic. You immediately click with them, you have a great relationship with them, you establish rapport, they're on board with what you're discussing, they're open to options, they're willing to engage in a treatment plan. And then you have other patients who come in kind of closed-minded. They have an idea of exactly what they want. They're uninterested in hearing kind of other approaches or other ideas. It's a constant fight upstream to get them to have a conversation about their care. And it's not necessarily that they're well informed. Like you can research and you can evaluate and you can read and you can inform yourself and still be open-minded about things. But if you come into the conversation with no interest of actually listening, that gets very frustrating. And that's something we deal with every single day. So
I think you deal with that more than me. So people come to me because there's usually a problem with them or there's a problem with their baby. And so I have the luxury of most people want to listen to be like, what can I do to make this better? But in just broad OBGYN or gynecology, that's when people come in with this kind of preconceived notion of this is my problem and this is what I want the doctor to do to fix it. And so he gets that more than me.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And most of Amanda's stuff is temporary because she only really deals with pregnant women.
They deliver.
They deliver. At the end of the day, they deliver and then they're done.
But it's really nice. I have lots of patients that I see in multiple pregnancies. And so you still can have a relationship with them, even if you're doing my subspecialty. If you're their OB, you can see them for their whole life.
Yes. Decades.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of sort of tailing off of that. So you said you were in private practice.
Mm-hmm.
So what made you decide, like, instead of going the like hospital route versus the private practice route?
For me, academics, I was good at it. It felt like a rat race. I just wanted to take care of people, and I felt that I could do that a little bit better in a private setting. I didn't have to worry about doing this paper and that paper and meeting this criteria and that criteria for that faculty in that faculty. And I had a good friend who that was her thing. She really liked it. I mean, it just wasn't my thing. I wanted to be a doctor so I could do just pure, doctor work with as little of the extra stuff as possible.
So to clarify what she's talking about, there are three routes in women's health that you can go. Academics, which means working for a university, hospital work, meaning that you're employed by a hospital, or private practice, which means that you're self-employed functionally. All three have pros and cons. What Amanda's talking about in terms of academic practice is that there's this idea of what's called publish or perish, meaning you have to do some form of research and then attempt to publish that research in a peer-reviewed journal that doesn't necessarily have to be, the Journal of the American Medical Association, doesn't have to be the New England Journal of Medicine, which are, kind of major journals in the United States and thus in the world. But you do have to produce some kind of publication that shows that you're productive. Productivity takes on a variety of things, but essentially what you're trying to do is buff your resume to show that you do more than patient care, because universities are less interested in patient care and more interested in prestige. That's an important point for residency training, because you'll come across big name hospitals that have like track records and pedigrees, say like, we're this amazing hospital because we've been around since 1800, but it turns out it's a little bit of a dumpster fire and they don't let you know it, and they're just kind of going on their reputation. So academics can be rewarding because you're offered the opportunity to teach, which is what I really enjoy doing. You're offered the opportunity to kind of watch people grow over the years, and then kind of leave the nest and figure it out on their own. You're offered patient care. You have a lot of collegiality in some places. Some places are viper's nests. But you do have to deal with the publish or perish idea. The next one is the hospital-based practice, meaning a hospital owns your practice. You're an employee, You get paid a salary. Some places have productivity, meaning the more babies you deliver, the more money you make. But you don't have to deal with overhead. So you don't have to deal with paying your staff. You don't have to deal with logistics of when is rent paid, when is all that stuff. You just clock in, you clock out, you follow the rules. But there's limited autonomy and decision-making for your group. And oftentimes patient care is dictated by cost more than efficacy of therapy. Private practice is the old dog that's kind of dying. Maybe the old man that's kind of dying because
well, we
better
can
than
clarify
dogs.
because I am in private practice, but I am part of basically a big nationwide company owns my practice. So I guess I'm employed, but not academic is a way to look at it.
And in private practice, you do this thing called fee for service, meaning the more you work, the more money you make. But you take on the liability, you take on the overhead, you pay for your staff, you pay for your own liability insurance. You're running a small business plus taking care of patients. So there are pluses with that because you can make a substantial sum of money, but you also have to deal with a bunch of crap. That's it. So I would have preferred to do academics. I was in academics at UCLA. I very much enjoyed it. I didn't publish anything super exciting. We wrote a book. It was dumb. And then it was kind of dumb. And then I wanted to come here and join Baylor, but Baylor wasn't interested in hiring me. I was only 3 years out. I didn't really have anything under my belt, and they didn't know who I was. So I just kind of sat around and played Diablo for 4 months until I joined the practice that I'm in now. Yeah. Next question.
So you mentioned earlier you kind of sort of got into like, I don't want to say a rut, but it's like in the first couple of years of medical school, you did all the classwork and you just kind of felt like, you know, you didn't really know where to go from there. How would you go about like managing that? Like, how did you kind of sort of get over that slump, I guess I should say?
You just bulldoze through. There's nothing to, you have to show up to class. Like you're paying to be there. You know, and I think I left school with, I don't know, $120,000 in debt, something like that. We're 10 years out of medical school. We pay $3,000 a month to pay back our student loans. I mean, it's a substantial sum. And
To be fair, we're not having any trouble paying it back.
yeah, I'm not complaining about our salary. I'm saying that you get what you pay for, right? So even though I was generally angry at the world, I still had to show up to class to get my education, right? So I didn't get over it. I just pushed through it.
So it's delayed gratification is a good way to think about medicine. It's a good way to think about a lot of things, but you have to remember that med school isn't the goal. It's the means to the goal, and the goal is to be a physician. And so for me, it was more like eyes on the prize, and the prize is to be a doctor.
And then, did either of you guys have gap years by any chance? Or did you guys just go straight into it?
Straight.
Straight into it?
I did straight on a technicality. I took a 5th year in college because I wanted to, I don't want to say play around, but I wanted to do a few different things for me. So I kind of did that, but I didn't do anything super fun where I had no commitments. I didn't get to go to Europe or anything like that.
And then, this is going to be, I don't know if you guys want to answer this, but can I ask what y'all's GPAs were in undergrad?
I remember. So mine, compared to some places, it wasn't super fantastic. I think I might have had a 3.6, but it was kind of weighted a little bit depending on where I was applying to.
I don't remember.
I was not summa cum laude.
No, I graduated cum laude.
Not me.
Maybe, I don't know, 3.5, maybe 3.8, something like that. I don't remember. It wasn't a 4.0. It couldn't have been a 4.0 because I wasn't summa or magna.
Yeah.
But there are a handful of criteria that help you get into medical school. Understand that you're probably in the most competitive field they've seen in years. So you have to, like, I couldn't get into medical school today. My MCAT score was average. I know they've rescored the MCAT, but I was in the middle of the curve. So the MCAT plays a major role. Your GPA plays some role, but your extracurriculars play a major role as well. You have to show that you're interested and that you want to be there. Academics won't get you there anymore.
Yeah, they want rounded candidates and not just mental machines.
Right. And we had those mental machines in our med school class. I mean, we're talking about people who were on the far right side of the bell curve. And then when they got into their clinical years, they fell to the middle of the bell curve because their ability to kind of talk to people was diminished. So they want to make sure you're more than a machine.
So I had a question because these past few months I've been shadowing an OBGYN in Bryan College Station. Maybe you know him, Hector Chapa. If not, it's fine. But one of our patients got some kind of bacterium. It was like streptococcus, and she heard that it could be bad, and so she asked the doctor, give it to her. What was the prognosis, or what was the species of bacteria or the strain? He said type A, I believe. It was the one that was.
That's no joke.
Yeah. And he said it was type A, and thankfully it was early on, and he explained to her that it is serious, but we can take care of it. But we left the room, came back, and she was just in tears, sobbing, almost sobbing, like the quivering lip, the shuddering jaw. But how would you deal with patients? Like, I know it's really, it's not preferable to have patients that have one that
That's the meeting.
that are already made up their mind.
I'm
But
supposed
like,
to just.
say like read something online, like say WebMD is extremely famous for like saying, oh, you have a headache, die. But like for something like that, how would you go about like just reassuring? I've seen it firsthand with my doctor, but I just want more, say like.
So I can take that. I do bad news a lot. What I've learned the hard way, I guess, or the more I do this, is I try really hard to avoid inciting fear. Because once people get that fear, they just shut down. It's really tough to have anything sink in after you tell them whatever it was. So that's my big approach. And the fact, was she outpatient? Was she in a clinic or was she in a hospital?
No, we were in a hospital.
Okay. So yeah, in a hospital setting, the way I would frame that is I would explain like this bacteria, it can be serious. There are plenty of cases where we can treat you and everything will be fine, but we have to take this seriously. That's kind of the way I do it. It's kind of, I guess, the sandwich, like this, well, you're doing okay now. And I do that a lot when I'm counseling somebody in a hospital and it's something bad. I also try to point out the positives, and I'll be like, well, on the plus side, we don't have to worry about this yet. We don't have to worry about this yet. It kind of helps them instead of just walking in and dropping this doom ball and then walking out.
I tend to establish a plan.
People like being able to hear, like, here's what it is and this is bad, but this is what we do.
Right.
They like that.
All right. Thank you.
If you're ever bored, and maybe you've seen it already, there's this lady, her name's Brene Brown. Anyway, whatever. She has a YouTube series about empathy, vulnerability, and a few other things. She has this fun little cartoon about the differences between sympathy and empathy. It's worth watching. I think it's like 3 minutes, but it really drives home so to split the idea, group A strep is a potentially lethal infection. But that is different from the other kind of bad news that we give. Like we give news like, your fetus has died, or, your baby passed away, or your baby has some genetic abnormality that's not compatible with life, or you have cancer, right? Group A strep, though inevitably lethal if you're slow to treat it, is completely treatable. So when you give bad news, you give it in different ways. So group A strep, you give a plan for, like, you have this, here's the antibiotic for it, here's how we're going to treat it. But when you express stuff like Amanda does every day, you have to be able to empathize with your patient to some degree. Like, they have to understand that, again, you're not a machine. Like, you come in, you feel what they're going through, and doing that every day sucks a lot because it can wear down on you. It's a difficult human experience, but that's what they're looking for. That's what actually helps, is expressing empathy, which is different from sympathy. So I encourage you to watch the video.
Yeah, so we have.
Would you type her name in? Just so we can have it.
Let me see if I can find the link.
We have a question.
We will hold on.
Yeah. And I'll get to the question once he's done clicking.
So what is it?
Ooh. All right, he's gonna try to share. All right. Ta-da. Okay, so there's a link. Okay, so the question I wanted to answer was, Stephen.
Video's still active.
Do you remember your first time where you had to tell a patient bad news, and how did that experience prepare you? I actually don't remember the very first time I had to tell somebody bad news. I don't think it was as a medical student. You really have a big buffer. You have the residents and you have your attendings. It was in residency, where in an OBGYN residency, it is going to be when you tell somebody that they've had a miscarriage or the baby's died. And it's just tough. There's no way to prepare. People will say, oh, do this and oh, do that. And I think it's one of those things you really just learn by doing, yes, you might mess it up. You do your best. And unfortunately, the more bad news you deliver, you kind of refine your technique, and you realize that these are the things that tend to go better, and these are the things that you don't want to do. All right, you want to take that one?
Let's see. So I dealt with burnout in medical school by going to the gym a lot. As a feather in my cap, maxed out the weight at the one gym that I was going to, which was great. And then I went and joined the gym down the road, where I was like a very small person compared to the very large people walking around. But I lifted a lot of weight. That's what I ended up doing, was I took out my frustration by powerlifting. And then in residency, I didn't do anything. We didn't have time. I played a lot of video games. There was a lot of Fallout, a lot of PlayStation 3. I bought a bike. I went cycling a lot. In California was actually much easier to blow off steam, because there are a lot of outdoor activities in Los Angeles because of the weather. I mean, so there are like hikes in the area. You can go down to the beach. There are places to eat. There are concerts and music venues and all that kind of stuff. So the big city, and don't get me wrong, Jacksonville is a sizable city, but we were also poor. So it was like work, home, work, home, work, home, and then make hamburger helper. But the but Los Angeles, I hate hamburger helper so much. It's the worst thing in the world. That's a lie. That's an exaggeration. But so that's what it ended up being. I lifted a lot of weight. I exercised as best I could. I spent as much time outside as I could. A lot of sun therapy, a lot of fresh air. And then in Los Angeles, a lot of different kinds of activities. Amanda reads a lot.
So what I was going to say is you can't lose touch with what makes you happy. Hopefully by this point in your life, you have a hobby or something that you enjoy doing. Do not let that go, because that is a good way to get yourself into trouble mentally. Save some time for yourself. And I learned it kind of the hard way in my first year of med school. I tried to be really hardcore and do everything I could. And then I met Steven, and he's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. He made a point to try to find me where I was hiding in the library studying and drag me out to do things. And in the beginning, it caused me a lot of stress. I'm like, what are you doing? This is going to be horrible. My grades actually went up after he started dragging me out of the library. So I actually learned you have to give yourself time, even if it's a little bit. Just don't let go of the things that make you happy.
So that next question, do people prefer a male or a female? It's definitely personal preference. So statistically speaking, if you have a male and female provider, the female provider will fill up her panel of patients within about 6 months to a year of opening her practice, versus a male provider, which will take 3 to 4 years. So generally speaking, women tend to seek women, but when you ask them the question specifically, the most common answer is, I want a compassionate provider. And it's the same as you find the provider that you click with. Like, clearly I'm a little bit crazy, and sometimes people find my crazy offensive, and sometimes people find my crazy charming. But either way, I am who I am, and I'm unashamedly myself. So if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that's what people are really looking for, is kind of a mesh of personality. The one thing that I've been told by some patients is they prefer to come see a male physician because it's like getting a diagnosis from a mechanic. Like, you come in, they say, here's what's wrong, and then here's how we're going to fix it. Versus if you go see a female provider, she attempts to convey to you her own personal birth story or her own personal experience as a woman. And some women get annoyed with that tool as a bridge of empathy. Not that the female provider is attempting to one-up the patient in her misery, but they're attempting to like share a story to say that you're not alone in the thing that you're experiencing. Some people find that form of community helpful, and some people get annoyed by it. So, at the end of the day, it's a personal preference. We have at my practice, we have 5 guys and 1 female provider. And we've had several people kind of leave the guy's part to come to the female provider just because they feel more comfortable. And that's cool too. And then what do you think?
So
you're a lady.
So, right. The preference in my subspecialty goes down because they just want somebody to tell them what's going on and help them manage the problem. Personally, women are 2 groups. Well, maybe 3. You have women who prefer male, women who actually prefer female, and women who don't care. And the women who don't care and just want a competent provider, that's the biggest group. As long as you know how to talk to people. Because, seeing an OB is a vulnerable thing for a lot of women. It's not just having somebody listen to your lungs, it's a lot more personal. So as long as you can address that on a way that a patient is fine with, it doesn't matter what your gender is. You know, when I was younger, I was one of those hardcore, I only want to see a female doctor. And then I've recently realized like that's just dumb, and I'm fine seeing males. I just want somebody competent, you know.
We don't have a lot of experience with trans patients. There isn't a huge population here, at least that come to our office. So I think UCLA had a substantial population, like UCLA and Westwood, like in West Los Angeles, there was a substantial population. But I didn't work for UCLA Westwood. I worked for an indigent care hospital, so I didn't really see a lot of trans patients there either. There's a fairly large community of physicians who do care for trans patients, but
and there are guidelines like OBGYN, like the American College of OBGYN has, you know, guidelines on this is the recommended way to address these issues. And I think, unfortunately, like any slice of society, you will have some people who have issues, and then you have other people that it's no big deal. We'll just roll with it. Me, since I haven't had a pregnant trans patient, although I know they are out there. It's no big deal. We'll roll with it. That's my take on it.
No more coughing, Morgan. So, okay, always do your best with every patient, but those who don't turn out the way. Yeah, we bring that stuff home all the time.
You have to process it. If you suppress it, then it's going to eventually explode in your face one day.
Yes.
So it is important to talk it out and process it. There's this whole, you know, in the old school, like, you know, doctors are supposed to be stoic. They're not supposed to share. They're not supposed to do all of this. That's a fast track to a psychiatric hospital.
Yes. It's like toxic masculinity.
Yeah. Like you have to process it. And we'll talk to each other freely. And I've even talked with my family, you know, we don't do patient details or anything, but share what you're feeling to help get it out.
Let it go.
I'll let you do that one.
Oh, so school was easier to balance the relationship because I would drag her out of the whatever library and we would have a sandwich outside, and that was cute and lovely. And then she would go back into the library and I would go back home and play video games, and that was great. Because she's like a 14-hour-a-day studier and I'm a 4-hour-a-day studier. Like my capacity doesn't go beyond that. And I've tried, and it has bad consequences when I push beyond 4. So the school was easy, and there was never any real competition because Amanda was second in the class and I was like 40th in the class. So there wasn't actually a gap to close. We're talking 3 standard deviations from the mean, and there was no way that I was going to actually compete with Amanda. So that was gone real early on. So school was easy. Residency sucked though, because when we matched, we did something called a couples match, which is when you bind yourself to someone in the match algorithm. So our fates were entwined, if you will. And we were attempting to match in a place that was geographically dense with residencies. Like Houston, for example, has 5 residency programs, or did at the time.
Probably more, yeah.
Although I heard they were closing, you told me they were closing LB.
Okay.
That's different.
Tangent.
Anyway, whatever. So tangent. So Chicago has like 7 residency programs.
New
York has a bunch, and then Jacksonville has 1, and Jacksonville had 6 residents per year. And one of the cornerstone questions we would ask people, can we take vacation together if we're in your residency program? And that's a poisonous question, because the last question you want to ask while you're on an interview is about break time. But we had to ask.
Yeah, it kind of helped weed out programs that were not couples friendly versus programs that were couples friendly.
And we did. We went to the University of Maryland, which was a lovely hospital. It's the home of shock trauma. Yeah. They have a beautiful facility, a lovely labor and delivery. They bake cookies on the first floor, and the ventilation system wafts the smell of cookies into labor and delivery. Like, you couldn't ask for a better day. But the residents pulled us aside and they were like, there's no way you're ever going to take vacation together. No one will let you do it. And we were like, okay, so U of M is out. But Jacksonville was like, no problem. You can easily do it. And that helped maintain our marriage, though it was rough those first few years, especially in our senior year, because we did opposite schedules. So in labor and delivery, you have this thing called the board, which is where you write the list of patients who are currently in labor. And we had 15 labor and delivery rooms, 16, 15, anyway, a lot of them. And you check out the board every morning and every night to the day shift and the night shift person. And so we switched chief positions. So at night, I would sign out to Amanda and tell her what we did during the day. Then she would change the plan because we practice medicine differently. And then I would come on and then I would change the plan again. And we did that for 4 months of our senior year. As an example.
And it wasn't completely changing the plan. It's just little style preferences, or let's do this versus let's do that.
Right.
But it was tough though, because we did that by design. Like that was part of the, well, you guys can vacation together, but in order to do so, you have to consolidate the rotations that you cannot take time off on. And one of those was labor and delivery. So that's how we ended up having to do opposite schedules. And not gonna lie, it's tough. I think communication is key, right? Communication.
Yeah, you have to talk.
It's just one of those, I don't know. It kind of worked.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So I know from shadowing some physicians over the last few years that you kind of learn how to talk to patients, but I was wondering if y'all learned how to do that kind of like in residency, like on the spot, or like in med school?
Both. I mean, in med school, you're given plenty of opportunity to see patients, you know. Like in my family practice rotation, which was, I think I did 12 weeks of family practice. I was given my own like dictation line. I saw patients on my own. I dictated their notes. I dictated their plans of care. I came up with, you know, diagnoses and treatment plans. You know, I had my supervising physician and we went over every single patient, but you have to learn to talk to people. I mean, I guess you don't have to learn to talk to people. You can still, you could fail at that, but yeah, so as early as med school.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Steven's the extrovert, so he had an easier time with that. I was the introvert, and so it was easy in med school to just kind of dip my toe in the water because I always had people over me. I had the resident over me, I had the attending over me, and I was still just learning. In residency, we went to a program that had a lot of autonomy where it's just you and your patient. And at that point, you know, it's kind of sink or swim, but at the same time, I was also happy to be taking care of people. And so that is probably when I learned to actually really talk to people and not just I'm playing doctor, you know, all of a sudden I was the doctor. And so, okay, I'll do it.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, and then the last question I have is kind of like less serious, but like while y'all were in med school, how did y'all like separate time from like studying to like stuff like cooking and like doing stuff that y'all want to do? Yeah.
In med school, you find your limit.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody has a threshold at which their brain literally cannot do anything else. Like they just need to stop because otherwise you're going to forget everything you've just tried to learn.
Yeah.
I developed a schedule based off of whichever semester it was and what my classes were. It was, you know, between these hours, I go to class, then I go to the library. And then at this time I go home to eat. Sticking to a schedule helped my brain. You know, trying to skip meals just to study more. Again, if you make yourself too unhappy, you get diminishing returns really fast.
And that's exactly what you're looking for. Is everybody familiar with diminishing returns? Google diminishing returns if you're not. But essentially, the amount of effort that you put into something no longer has a payout is the summary of diminishing returns. So for me, that was the 4-hour mark. And it didn't matter if it was 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon, or whatever. I really couldn't go beyond it. I literally did it for one test. I did it for the liver pathology test during our second semester of our second year. I went to 8 hours a day, and I came very close to just cracking because I was like, no, my brain cannot take any more of this. And I tried a bunch of different strategies, like studying 15 minutes and then cycling out, and 15 more minutes and cycling out, or 30 minutes of this and whatever, and all these different study strategies. And eventually my brain just says, I'm no longer present, go do something else. So yeah, you find your limit, you find your diminishing return curve, and then you stick to it and don't try to break it.
Thank you.
I have a really quick question. So I'm going into epidemiology, so public health is a really big, like information is a really big deal to me. I can speak for most girls, like growing up, we didn't know much about women's health. So what do you think we can do to give more information to like middle school and high school girls, and what information would you want to give them? And do you think it's important for girls of that age to know these things?
I think it is important. As to the how, that's tough. I mean, I know social media has its downside, but having good resources, and the younger you are, the more computer savvy you are, and the better your ability to find like-minded people. It's tough. You could even start, I'm thinking way back, like middle school. Honestly, I would say an easy in would even be, say, like sex ed, those really awkward classes. But you have a captive audience, and you could also present it in a more positive note. Like there's this whole field that, addresses women, and instead of making it oogie and awkward.
I think your question is super complex.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about traditional female roles in a traditionally conservative society. The United States is a traditionally conservative society that tends to pigeonhole girls into a standard role, and the exploration of other thoughts and ideas are often frowned upon or suppressed. Some questions are thought too radical for too prudish of a family unit. Other ideas are discouraged from being taught in school or other public venues because of shame associated with sexuality, and so you're asking a very difficult question. It inevitably ends up being a personal answer for parents and daughters, how much they want to help their kid understand what's going on with their bodies. There are kid-friendly books that help explain like puberty and breast development, axillary hair development, pubic hair development, the onset of menstruation, and all those kind of different basic anatomical aspects of growth and development, all the way up until I had a patient last year whose 7-year-old daughter watched me put an IUD in her mother, and her mom and the 7-year-old could delineate all of the female anatomy. She was like, "Look, Mom, I can see your cervix." And like she was literally watching over my shoulder as I put the IUD into the lady's uterus. And she was like, "Okay, yeah, what do you see?" "Well, I see your vulva, and I see your vagina, and I see your cervix, and we put IUDs in to help us control when we want to have babies and to help control our periods." And I'm like, I mean, you're just one step away from putting the IUD in yourself. And so we had like a little educational session because, the mom's up in stirrups and she clearly has encouraged this kind of stuff. And though the idea might be foreign that kids can, on some mature level, digest the idea of anatomy, this one clearly could, as an example of not necessarily accepting the limitations that we traditionally put on children and kind of opening the idea of maybe they get more than we give them credit for.
Yeah. Is Go Ask Alice still a web page? Does that still exist?
I vaguely remember it, but I'm not. But it's been like multiple years.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I mean, because that would be also a good, I guess, venue, because if that still exists or something similar, because girls find it for answers to questions. And if you could get access to that venue and somehow, you know, kind of steer them towards, you know, education. I haven't, he's trying to look it up.
I'm not, I'm looking at something else.
But I just remember like those websites like that are, I guess, great places to get people who already have questions and to help. You know, you can get honestly data from them. But I remembered that. And I remember vaguely that was a really good website when you were in a situation where you couldn't ask anybody else a question like that.
Kind of sort of tailing off of that, do you think like from a public health perspective that maybe targeting the parents would be a better idea than like going to the high schools and the junior highs and all that kind of stuff like they're doing now?
That's tough. That's going to go down a twisty road. I think it's going to depend on your own individual beliefs. You know, as a field, OBGYN is pretty liberal. Like we're pretty comfortable talking about things like that. But other people are not. It's one of the weird things when you're a med student and you rotate through OBGYN and everybody's talking about vaginas and discharge and sex and STDs. And there's a little bit of culture shock because you're like, oh, we can say all these words. So I think as a specialty, we're a little more comfortable with that than others.
Yes, I think it's kind of unfair to target parents solely.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's kind of where it starts.
You're gonna get people who are like me.
Yeah, the question about should we rearrange the curriculum in American public schools is also a fairly complex question. The short answer is probably yeah. Considering our general world ranking on education, probably. So, and should we include more information about how human anatomy develops over time? Yeah.
We're biased towards absolutely yes, but I acknowledge that bias.
All right.
Right.
Any more thesis level questions?
Yeah, right.
No?
All right, if there's no more questions, thank you both for taking your time to do this. I literally think it's so awesome that you guys are like the power couple of OB. So like, I love this entire thing. So thank you guys for, you know, having this meeting.
Happy to help. Yeah, absolutely. And good luck to everybody.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, well, I guess that's it. Have a good night. And as for everyone who's still in the meeting, I'll post this on YouTube once I get the chance to get it downloaded. And that's it.
All right.
Bye,
all. Yeah.
Bye. Thank you all so much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. See y'all later.
See you around.